Hi, my name is Diego Gonzalez. I'm the director and editor for the new film Breakpoint. After various requests to host a segment where I answer fan questions, I finally decided to give the people what they want. I had my assistant pick out a few questions you guys sent in. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to a favorite childhood game of mine, Run 2, a fast-paced platformer game on Cool Math Games and other online gaming sites. It's the sequel to the original Run and expands on its mechanics with new challenges. Alright, enough about the game. Let's get started. How does your product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? Breakpoint is, at its core, a sports drama, but it's also a deeply personal story about friendship, failure, and self-worth. We use the conventions of the sports genre to ground the audience in something familiar: the underdog story, the high-stakes final game, the emotional fallout of a loss. But where we challenge those conventions is in what happens after that defining moment. Most sports films focus on the pursuit of victory, but Breakpoint asks, what happens when you lose? And more importantly, what happens when that loss forces you to reevaluate your relationships and future? Traditionally, sports films build toward a climactic win or a bittersweet but honorable loss, with a clear resolution. We break from that structure by focusing on the psychological and emotional consequences of failure. Our protagonists don't just lose a game, they lose a shared dream. One of them underperforms, and that one moment unravels years of friendship, loyalty, and identity. We wanted to explore how success and failure are often measured in extremes, how young athletes and people in general define themselves through performance, and how that pressure can fracture even the closest relationships. The film also challenges conventions in terms of character dynamics. A lot of sports dramas center on rivalries between opponents, but Breakpoint turns that tension inward, making it about a rivalry between friends. It's not about teammates pushing each other to be better. It's about what happens when one realizes he might be better off without the other. That's a much harder, more painful realization than just losing a match. In terms of representation, Breakpoint tackles the pressures young athletes face, especially when their self-worth is tied to achievement. There's an unspoken expectation that talent guarantees success. But what happens when the talent alone isn't enough? The film also reflects broader social issues, like the way institutions, particularly in sports, measure people's value based on performance rather than character. For these two protagonists, their entire futures seem to hinge on a single game. That mirrors the pressure many young people feel, whether in sports, academics, or any high-stakes pursuit, where one misstep can feel like the end of the road. Beyond the physical and competitive aspects of sports, Breakpoint deeply explores the mental health struggles that come with high expectations, self-doubt, and personal failure. Athletes, especially young ones, are often conditioned to push through pressure and setbacks without acknowledging the emotional toll it takes. In the film, both protagonists deal with internal battles. One struggles with guilt and insecurity after underperforming, while the other wrestles with resentment and the fear of leaving his best friend behind. Their inability to communicate these emotions creates a rift between them, highlighting the stigma surrounding vulnerability in competitive environments. Instead of glorifying perseverance at all costs, Breakpoint sheds light on the psychological burden of feeling like you're not good enough and the impact that pressure can have on friendships, self-worth, and future ambitions. By taking a more nuanced approach to the emotional struggles athletes face, the film aims to spark conversations about mental health, resilience, and the importance of seeking support, even in a culture that often equates vulnerability with weakness. Ultimately, Breakpoint is about more than just sports. It's about the complexities of friendship, the way we measure success, and the painful reality that sometimes the people we grow up with aren't meant to follow us into the next chapter of our lives. By playing with genre conventions and digging into the emotional stakes behind competition, we hope to tell a story that feels both familiar and refreshingly honest. Thank you.